The Eagle has landed. Sim update number 14 is here. It bumps up the Flight Simulator version to 1.35.21.0 and is available both on the PC as on the Xbox. So there's a lot of new things, also a lot of bug fixes, as always, right? So let's focus on the new content and features. First of all, there's the flight plan assistance. And the flight plan assistance is really important to understand because it changes the behavior completely of the ATC. So normally when you set the flight plan using the world map, the ATC will follow the uh, flight plan which you configured. That's now changed, right? Not by default, because by default the setting is still set to active, but you can deactivate the setting to make it even more realistic. In that case, it will use the active runway and approach based on the current conditions only. In that case, it will ignore the flight plan which you create using either the world map or using the sim brief, right? And it will take into consideration the conditions which are, let's say, actually taking place, right? The weather, etc. Then the next thing, which is a cool feature, which I think everybody was waiting for, is the ATC now clears a step to the next altitude sometime before arriving at the previously cleared altitude. So what happened in the past, I would say prior to sim update number 14, when you were instructed to fly a certain altitude, you will arrive at that altitude, and then it will instruct you to go to the next step. So what they changed now is that roughly 2000 feet before the next step, they will tell you, hey, you need to go to the next level, right? Which is then in that case a new altitude which they will clear you, let's say clear you for. So that prevents that you need to continuously adjust the autopilot after it already started going into cruise mode, which is cool. Then there are two fixes for the HC vectoring bug fixes, right? So you can now assign the correct clearance when the first waypoint were on or over the other. And there's also another bug which fixes a new vector and clearance every time the user asks the HC for a new vector. In addition to that, there's a completely new aircraft, the Cirrus SR22T G6 model, with a custom engine simulation, book accurate performance, as well as an extensive perspective plus NXI features, which is referring to the G1000 NXI features. If we go to the general fixes, there are several fixes, right? So first of all, there are some localization fixes, but probably the ones which you're most interested in are the fixes for the crashes which were experienced when playing Flight Simulator, but also the performance optimizations for long flights, right? So if you played long flights, then sometimes the performance was decreasing, not that good, but what they did is they made some enhancements to ensure that Flight Simulator will continue to work correctly, even if you're doing very long flights. Then there was a fix for the HT that was mixing voices in localized languages, as well as the automated weather report temperature reading updated. So those are the bug fixes which are generic, right, for no matter which aircraft you're using or vehicle you're using, because you can also use boats for cars, right? But I would say, assuming that you're using it for airplanes, then keep this in mind. Then the marketplace, a small fix where the wish list would not sort properly in the marketplace, as well as the menu, which also contains a fix. And that one was especially experienced when going to the logbook. In some cases, there was a small freeze that's now being fixed, right? So if you now go to the logbook, it directly shows you the results. When focusing on the navigation and traffic, there are some let's say phraseology enhancements for the HC, right? So the removal of the word for in the altitude change request. And they eliminated the requirement to include altimeter settings in the takeoff clearances. So that's being fixed. For the online, there was a special fix for the players not seeing each other in multiplayer mode. And for the weather, they have included the snow and ice coverage accuracy has now been improved, as well as they fixed an issue with the meteor information, which was containing malformed wind information. Another fix for the weather was that the sim occasionally retrieved obsolete weather data, right? So that was weather data which was not applicable anymore. That's something they fixed. And as well as they improved the transition during cloud coverage updates and fixed an issue where clouds don't load when starting a flight. That's for, I would say, the sim itself. Let's jump to the class cockpits and the aircraft updates. So first of all, for the Garmin G3000 and G5000, as well as for the G1000 NXI, there's one fix included where they say, okay, fix an issue when removing an airway entry from the flight path could sometimes corrupt the complete flight plan. Right, so that's when you are having a flight plan defined and then remove one of the entries. Then I would say the aircraft or the navigation system was going into a weird state. That's now being fixed and being applied both to the G3000 and G5000 as well as the G1000 NXI. But as you can see, the G1000 NXI, that's I would say kind of the I would say most popular product, also contained a lot of other fixes. First of all, there was the autopilot support for the level and touch and go modes, as well as the MFD. There's now an edit page menu pop-up for the MFD's nearest airport page, right? So if you go to the nearest airport page where you can see, okay, hey, which airports are close to me to select an airport which you want to land on, that's now also getting a pop-up. Uh, and there are some changes to the appropriate label with the CAS messages, right? So those are the messages which are, I would say, containing the errors or the, I would say, warning indications. That's now being fixed, as well as pressing the PFD alert soft key to acknowledge an alert. That's also now being fixed, which acknowledges the CAS messages, but also cancels the chimes which it gives, right? So if you get an alert, you will also be notified via oral chimes. But previously you couldn't cancel them, but now you can cancel them. Good to see. As well as the order of those alerts, right? So in some cases, those alerts popped up, but in the wrong order, or maybe you got multiple alerts, then they would show in a different order. What they now have done is they changed the order of priority and time first seen, which means that the first alert will be, I would say, put on top, and then second alert, etc. Also, they added support for the knob-based transponder code entry using H events, right? So specifically for external device where you can control the flight simulator for. That's now being added. Then specifically for the aircraft developers, there are tons of things which they can use, right? So do expect that some of the developers which are using the G1000 NXI, they will likely implement some new stuff or fix some things in their existing aircrafts. The same thing is applicable for the WT21. Also, one specific thing has been added to the for the aircraft developers. I'm not gonna spend too much time on it. Then going to the aircraft themselves. First of all, there's the general section, and the general section is a little bit misleading because, as you can see, there are several names of aircrafts which are belonging to the Reno Air Races spec, right? Or you can also buy them separately nowadays. And there are a lot of things there with the GNS where you enter the values by double clicking on the GNS screen, right? You can see that it's almost fixed in every aircraft which is over there, so that's good to see. Going back to the top, you can see that the payload station weights that are set via the SimConnect, which is an external software component which is used by third-party solutions, is now properly displayed in a weight and balance toolbar panel. So that's cool. Here again, the aircraft simulation stability is also fixed, which kind of say refers back to the generic section where they also mentioned that they made some improvements there. Going down, we see that they fixed an issue which prevented the cockpit interactions working in some rare conditions, right, where you simply couldn't push any button anymore, as well as false positive errors regarding input events when loading AI planes. Going to almost to the bottom of the list, right? There's was a fix for an issue that caused the state of the avionics circuit depending features to be toggled on and off when no marker beacon circuit was present, as well as they increased or implemented an option. It's not really a bug, but also a new feature to slow down the simulation speed to 1/8 or 1/16 of the real time. Cool. Then the external HUD receives an update where you can now display more than 8 engines power values. That's likely has to do with some aircraft which have been released, which have more than 8 engines. As well as the helicopters received an update specifically for the anti-stall protection is now disabled for helicopters. Airbus A310 received a specific update when you were flying from KSNS ATIS after departing KSFO. It was stuck on broadcasting mode, as well as vertical speed knob labeling as altitude knob in a tooltip, right? The tooltip is something which you, I would say, when you hover over it, when you switch those tooltips on, you can see what kind of button it is. Then the sad news, the Airbus A320neo V2 didn't make this update because it was crashing too much, especially on the console, And that's why Microsoft and Asobo said, okay, hey, this is not good. It doesn't pass the certification, so we're not going to ship it. Too bad. We need to wait a little bit longer. Then a helicopter update, the Bell 407. Several rotor enhancements, right? Weight changes, brake force adjustments, blade dynamics adjustments, but also the throttle governed RPM during startup and shutdowns has been fixed. Engine performance changes, performance data on the aircraft selection screen has been updated. Some text issues, the cold and dark mode state changes, as well as the checklist correction because there were some errors on it. Jumping to the Boeing 787 and 747. First of all, the performance optimizations for the consoles and on some hardware configurations, right? That was, I would say, since they changed a lot in those aircrafts, it was having, I would say, a performance impact, especially when playing it on the consoles. That has now been adjusted, so it should work better. Didn't try it out myself, to be honest. And they made a change to the weight and balance page. There's an operational center of gravity margin. It's considered now to avoid extreme center of gravity values when loading the aircraft, right? So make sure that you look at it. Then the ATC, it knows that it knows about the planned cruise altitude and will assign you a flight level accordingly, right? So normally when you or previously when you let's say set the altitude, right, the cruise altitude, then the ATC would simply ignore it. But now it will, let's say, honor it and will assign you that altitude, which is cool. And they also fixed some checklist issues where there were some issues with, so that's good. Also for the 787 specifically. And as you can see, the 787 received some more updates, right? So first of all, there's the correct movement of the center of gravity as the fuel is burned by moving the tanks to the exact locations of those on the real plane. And there are several EFB fixes. So support clearing of the tau field. The cap achievable MTOW is the certified limit of the plane. They correct some messages, adjust the automatic brightness, and fix some spelling errors, which is cool. Last one, for the systems, a reserve fuel transfer will not stop once the start of mid-flight. That's specifically for the 747. There was an issue with the fuel transfer that's now also being addressed. Then the CDU, they fixed the takeoff speeds when being invalidated when opening takeoff ref on the co-pilot side. This is also very specific fix. The Citation CD4 also received an update. This one is, I'd say, similar to the one which was for the Boeing 747 and 787 and has to do with the planned cruise altitude, which will now be honored. Then the new aircraft, the Cirrus SR22T G6. Well, this is a very long list, so I'm not going to go to it completely, but it's a brand new art model of the aircraft. So they completely rework the model, right? So including some new systems like the turbo and fuel engine systems, but it also includes the G1000 NXI, and the G1000 NXI has multiple pages, right? Fuel management, weight and balance, trip planning, PFD power gauge, gaggle indicator, GS and TAS, a lot of cool things which you are already used to in other aircrafts, which are having that G1000 NXI. Other than that, some nicely modeled Garmin control unit has been included, as well as new autopilot modes has been included, the level TO and the GA. And of course, there's a large suite of accurate gas messages, including the new G1000 NXI alerts, right? So that's good. Now we're coming to some localization issues for the Curtiss GN4. I'm not going to go to them, but there were some localization issues. TBM 930, the autopilot panel backlighting is fixed. The Douglas DC-3 also received multiple updates, including starting engines in multiplayer mode, which was causing issues, some wording issues which were overlapping. The classic 8-way quick view control fixed during flight, some cold and dark mode. Would say issues were now fixed. The enhanced edition cockpit received also some updates, low resolution text, as well as the panel texture for the beacon light, the hot not correctly indicating state of the flap, and other kind of cool things which are now good. The Grumman G21 Goose, also this one received some updates. The AI co-pilot completes the checklist items for you in evaluation mode. That's good. Some fuel drawn from the wrong tank when studying the cold and dark. Some tooltips which are now fixed, and the toggle taxi light in the cockpit must use key binding. That's all fixed now. The Hercules, they fixed the quick cameras and also the engine 5-way throttle fixed when using a gamepad, right? using a gamepad, well, then it's kind of hard to control all the engines using one button. That's now being fixed. The DR400, the fixed flaps looked misaligned when the wings in neutral position, right? So one of them was, say, a little bit higher, if I'm correct, compared to the other one. That's now being fixed, so that's good. Then camera fixes, both for the Ryan and IP Spirit of St. Louis, as well as the Wright Flyer. And then, specifically going to the world map, they use more realistic mapping of wavelengths onto the RGB values for the ozone layers coloring and the sun color. So if you looked at the developer, what was it, broadcast, there you already saw some images, and maybe you saw them on social media. If you're flying, let's say, a little bit later in the night, right, or when the sun comes up, you can see that the coloring is now really, really, really realistic. It has improved very much. Then for the Top Gun, they fixed an issue specifically for the Maverick landing challenge that was missing, so it's good. And the peripherals, they fixed various peripheral issues. Not sure which one, to be honest, but I think a lot. As well as for the Oculus touch left control switch from wide to menu button. The anti-ice and aux view pump LEDs are now working properly with the Bravo throttle quadrant. So that's good. And that's also the end of this long list, right? So you can still see that there's some new things, like for Sim Connect, they add some new stuff. And for SimVars, they add some stuff, which is all used by third-party applications to control the aircraft. Also wasn't received several updates. So pretty cool to see that they add so much fixes for this new update for Flight Simulator 2020, I should say. How to get it? Really easy. Simply go to the store on your Windows machine. Make sure that it's that you download all the updates. After that, start Flight Simulator. It will pop up and say, hey, you need to install updates. Make sure that you install all the updates. After that, go to the marketplace. Make sure that you install all the updates there. If you're experiencing issues, as mentioned on the top of this page, make sure that you move items out of your community folder and then retest again. Of course, I would say there are probably still some issues with some of the community add-ons, maybe also, and not specifically related to the community package add-ons, but try this before raising a case with Asobo. Here ends this video where we looked at the release notes of Sim update number 14, which has just been released. So have fun, go and download it, and try it, and give your feedback below this video in the comment box what your experience is with Sim update number 14. Again, here ends this video. I hope you liked it. If you liked it, then consider to use the like button. If you got questions or comments, then feel free to post them in the comment box below. And if you want to stay up to date about new videos I'm posting, then make sure that you're subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching and see you next time.